Welcome back to episode 5 of the Athletes Platform, where we put the athlete first and provide them a place to share their story, as well as providing you, the listener, with the information you need to push yourself on and off the track. As always, I'm Aaron Booth, and today we are going global. Well, we're actually only going across the ditch to Sydney, but it's still exciting nonetheless. On today's episode, we have Australian Jack Edwards on, and he chats a little bit about his journey going from an athlete into the coaching world. You can find Jack on Instagram at Metamorphosis Track Project. I'm going to chuck it down here, but you can also find it on the Instagram page. So head on over to the Athletes Platform Instagram page and find Jack's link, jump on, give him a follow. I think it'll be really helpful if you are a coach or if you are an athlete just looking to get some more knowledge out there, because Jack does put out some pretty good gems on Instagram, so it's definitely worth the follow. An English teacher by day and an athletics coach by night, Jack really brings a fresh and honest outlook onto the world of coaching, training, and life in general. I do talk quite a bit in the podcast about some of the blogs or seminars that he's put out there. I'll be chucking them in the links below. It's on the YouTube channel, so if you are interested or curious about what we're talking about, please go have a look. The blog posts, they're not long to read, and they are really just honest pieces of writing, as Jack mentions in the podcast, so again, well worth your time. It was great to get Jack on the show to share his insight into his transition into coaching, as well as hearing his development as a coach and what he's doing to continue to grow in this field. One of the blog posts that we do talk about quite often in the show is the Imperfect Leader blog that Jack wrote. It's a real honest piece, and we just started discussing what it was that made him overcome the doubts about getting into coaching, as well as the doubt and not wanting to take responsibility for athletes back then, which has led to him being able to build a really great squad of athletes in Australia and in Sydney right now. We also started throwing some ideas around about ways to keep athletes in sport after they've finished competing, which is actually something I'd like to hear your thoughts on as well. So in Instagram, on YouTube, wherever it is, throw in your ideas about what we can do within athletics or sport in general to just help keep athletes within the sport after they're finished. Honestly, I could have spent hours chatting to Jack, and like he said, a 2-hour chat just wouldn't have been digestible for the listeners. So we managed to crop it down, but I think this is a really great episode for anyone who is looking to go into coaching, for coaches, and as well as anyone who's just struggling to really commit to going after something that they're passionate about. So I hope you enjoy episode 5 with Jack Edwards. Let's get into it. Appreciate you jumping on.
My pleasure.
And I know I had a little bit of a look back, and I know you did sprints and hurdles growing up, but I want to know kind of when you started to get the idea about coaching. Like, was there a specific time where you thought, hey, I'm keen on coaching, or was there someone that had like a big impact on you in your youth?
I don't think it was... Okay, if there was a specific time, it was when I lived in Germany for a year as a part of so I was doing an education course, but also had an international studies component.
Yeah.
So I was living in a small town called Tübingen, which is in the southwest. But anyway, I was running all my time through living in Germany, and I was coaching myself. Yeah. And I was just like riding my bike in this small little town and listening to so many podcasts and stories and anecdotes from coaches. And it was that I would say that was like a realization moment that when I come back, even if I want to be a teacher, I really wanted to just finally undertake something which has been ticking on in the back of my mind. Yeah. And I think that, I don't know, maybe this can resonate with you because you're in the States right now, and when you come back to New Zealand, maybe you want to pick this up. But when you're by yourself in a foreign country, and maybe it was even more because it's in Germany, and even if I could speak German, it's like it felt very different, and
no, for sure.
I had a lot of time to my thoughts, and so I was, and I was getting encouraged by other people as well to do so. So that I would say during my exchange in Germany was when there was a moment where I was like, let's do this thing. But the coaching profession is something that's just attracted me for ages. Where like when I was playing Australian football growing up, I remember in like my under 16 team, I was injured. And the coach at the time, like he couldn't be there that weekend. So he gave me the reins for a weekend to coach, to coach my peers and stuff. And everyone in the team was down for it. And then one of the parents who coached the team in the past kind of like bullied me out of it.
Really?
And I remember being...
I feel like you'd probably be more intimidated by like, trying to coach your peers, because you're a teammate of theirs, and then all of a sudden, like, you're the one telling them what to do. I feel like that's where you would have got more stick. But I mean, for a coach or for a parent to like bully you out of it.
I just remember being really cut. I was really cut that I didn't have that opportunity. So maybe that's early on. I was sort of attracted to it, but then it grew. Like I did little coaching things after school, whether it was for Australian football, or I was coaching hurdles where I went to school. And then that was really fun. But I would say, during Germany, when I started to listen and read, I was reading a ton. I sort of had a surplus of knowledge from what my experience was to be as a coach. And when I started to view people like Dan Pfaff and stuff like that as like superstars, they were like rock stars to me. I was like, okay, you've got a real admiration for the people in this thing. So if you look up to them, maybe you should jump in and just try it out.
So then I guess that follows on pretty well. Like, you said you listen to podcasts and talking about guys like Dan Pfaff. Like, where did you turn to? Like, what resources to kind of expand your knowledge? Because I know in your blog you kind of mentioned you felt like you could offer a bit more than a lot of the coaches in the area at the time. But what are the steps that you've taken to make sure you're not one of those guys that it's like go run 10 400s, go run 10 200s type thing?
I think I don't think you need to sort of do like educate. You don't need to go down an education route to come to the conclusion that maybe running like 10 400s the first day of a preseason isn't a good idea, because it's just like it's a combination of common sense and physiology that the body will not be able to really adapt to that stimulus straight off the bat. So I guess my arrogance for why I thought I could do maybe a better job is purely from the fact that I thought that I could do like a little bit, and it would probably be better than sending some athletes back through injury or just by doing too much. So, but I guess to continue my education, I'm obsessed with like problem solving stuff, and I still have a lot of holes. I've got so many holes, even from like a anatomical, physiological sort of perspective. So I'm really lucky that my coaching team with Louis and Mike, they've graduated from Louis, finished his sports science degree and reads more than anyone else I know in terms of like literature sort of papers. And Mike, he's finished his doctorate and he's lecturing at universities on these sort of topics. So I'm really lucky that the people that I've surrounded myself are kind of filling the gaps that I have.
I know, like, I've never been a big reader, but I know as soon as I start reading something I enjoy, like right now I'm finishing up Cal Dietz triphasic stuff, and I mean, once I get stuck into something like that, like I just can't put it away. And I mean, I'm not, like, for me, that's big because it's not something I've grown up doing. But yeah, I mean, so you've listened to like just different podcasts of different coaches. I mean, you've obviously looked at a heap of Dan Pfaff stuff. I'm just trying to like figure out if there are athletes out there who may want to like understand more about the sport, whether it is track and field or other sports or about coaching. Like, yeah, where would your first place be to turn to? I mean, it's pretty open ended because it's a whole world of like knowledge out there. But
Yeah. I mean, I guess it also depends on the experience of the athlete.
yeah,
I'm really lucky that I also had really good mentors as far as who coached me in my youth. I was coached by Thea Dovskina, who at the time when I was with her, Steve Solomon was running in the Olympic final, and
yeah,
Justin Bellino had won a billion national titles in the hurdles, and the whole squad was like really amazing. So she brought a really like unique perspective, being like an 80-year-old Ukrainian lady, and then I was also coached by Andrew Murphy, and in his squad. So I was with Rowan, who's obviously had awesome success,
10:01.
especially as of late, and
Yeah,
all of the squad, like it's not just him, the whole squad is killing it.
yeah,
So I actually think that if you're an athlete who's had coaches, I think that maybe the first place would be to try and understand what were the real positives out of those coaching environments or experiences, and can you try and like collate and organize it so you can take the best of those experiences and move them forward.
yeah,
And then really, if there's a hole that you want to fill, which hasn't been tapped by those training environments, and you will find a way
yeah,
because the internet is expansive. Like I'm an absolute pest on social media in terms of I just have no hesitancy to find someone and ask them questions, because I
yeah,
think that if someone's in the coaching profession, they're more than likely going to be quite happy to just even offer 2 cents, and that
yeah,
2 cents can be 2 cents to them, but it's like $50 to you
yeah.
sometimes. So
And I mean,
yeah,
I think that's probably good for me to hear as well because yeah, sometimes it's like there are certain people that I may want to reach out to, but at the same time, it's like I don't want to ask them something and then kind of think like, what's he? Does this kid even know what he's talking about? Type thing. It's just, I guess it's
yeah,
yeah, just like a little lack of confidence at sometimes around diving into something outside of athletics and like just being an athlete and the performance
yeah,
side. And that's something I want to talk about a little later, especially
yeah,
talking about your Imperfect Leader blog because I thought that was really cool. But we talked about it a little before, and how did you go from, you said you started doing some coaching things at the footy club and at like your high school and stuff, but how did you go from doing those jobs to actually being a coach and having a squad of athletes, building them up, and then almost, I guess, you are trying to convince them that you're the right person for them without,
yeah.
I mean, you may have had results, but for someone who may be like new to coaching and may not have results supporting them, how would you go about convincing athletes that you're the one?
Oh man, this is uh, I've never really tried to like view it through the mindset of like trying to convince someone. I sort of just want to like unashamedly just like put my perspective on the table on a matter, and then if it's something that resonates with them,
Yeah,
it resonates. If it's something that doesn't, it doesn't.
yeah,
And uh, and and because I think my biggest there's a couple of things which are like real key principles to me, and I think something which I remember kind of convinced one of my athletes was that I made this like post online ages ago, and it
yeah,
was the scene from The Wolf of Wall Street,
yeah,
and it's um, it's the scene where Jordan Belfort is like asking for the man on the telephone to measure him by his losses, not by his wins.
Yeah.
And I was like that, even if he was just being like, selling snake oil over the phone, like it's not the same, but I kind of like that sentiment because I think that oftentimes in like the coaching profession, the success of a coach is really measured by like just a random freak who's come along, and like that's just defines a coach's legacy or their quality, where in reality there's probably an absolute graveyard of athletes just fell behind. So I think in my opinion, like I just sort of want to do what's best for the individual and what's best for the athlete, and ensure that they're not just that it's not a cog in this system which is only going to be serving 10-20% of the athletes in this environment. So if you when you have that sort of belief and philosophy, then at least the athlete understands that they're going to be cared for and that their needs are going to be trying met, as opposed to being like, these are my methods and they're going to work regardless.
It doesn't matter who you are, what you've done before. Like, this is what you're going to do, and if not, it's my way or the highway type thing. I guess that not convincing them to buy in, but just I guess just being honest and saying,
I think honesty is huge.
And I think that's probably, I mean, being in the US the past 4 years, looking at like the NCAA as a whole, that's probably exactly what you're talking about. There's probably so many athletes in there who may fall into the wrong program, and they just end up being another cog that gets rusty and gets thrown out at the end of 4 years. But
it happens in all environments, like where sometimes just like the coach and the athlete just aren't the right fit. Like even in the NBA, you'll have some guy just like bouncing around in his early years, and all of a sudden it's like, bam, they've got a contract, the right contract, the right coach, the right environment, and they make sense as a player all of a sudden, and then you'll hear them talk, and they're like, I'm no different to when I was playing in Guatemala or something like that. It's just circumstance, and it's a bit of fate did it, but not too sure.
All right. So I want to talk about the blog, because that was something, I mean, reading through it, like we hadn't chatted a whole lot before I reached out to you, but it was like a really honest piece, and honestly, like a whole lot of it did resonate with me a lot. I mean, I've got some notes here, and you talked about how you did lack a bit of confidence about getting into coaching, and I guess being a little afraid to be the one responsible for the athlete's welfare and their career to some extent. And I mean, I don't know if I'm speaking just for myself here, or if there's other athletes out there that think the same, but I feel like, it may be common that when athletes want to go, if they have been an athlete for a long time and want to step outside of that and get into, whether it's a coaching role or just pursuing like another career, they may be afraid to get into positions where they're responsible for things outside of their comfort zone. Can you just like talk about your experience going through that and kind of fighting off those doubts, and things which made you think, like, you know what, I am good enough to do it? It's long and deep, but I
appreciate I really appreciate that that you've read it, because whenever I write, it's like very much a spur of the moment sort of thing, and I really have no intended audience other than myself. So I'm glad that some things really resonated with yourself and a couple of other people, and I think that like as you said, I definitely had a bunch of like doubts and anxieties about coaching to begin with, and but there would have been a million reasons as to why I shouldn't, and I guess you could do that for anything. But I think with the assumption of welfare sort of factor, why I really struggled with it is because I I think that I had seen what like the mismanagement of the
Athletes could
welfare
look
of
like.
athletes. It can look really messed up,
Yeah.
and like whether it's like physically, emotionally, and I think a lot of the times I'm like 100% certain that the coach's intention was never to do that. Like the coach is only coaching to make the athlete better,
Yeah.
and here is like someone who's an absolute shell of who they could be maybe. And so I'm like, even if I'm critical about this experience, I could still have this capacity to maybe be negative about someone. And but then, and I was so why I wrote this is because that afternoon I was talking to one of the guys who I coach with, and I was sort of talking about this idea of like emotional imposter syndrome, and he didn't feel a shred of it. Like he couldn't really resonate with this because he's different to me in this sense, but he would sort of experience it more from like a technical, tactical, physiological sort of like experience, or even just an experience side of things. Like, what have I done to have this opinion? But something that him and I always talk about, I think, is that if you're cognizant of what, that you are looking after people for one, but if you're extremely like thorough in the process and you're constantly questioning what you're doing, then I think you can kind of sleep at night and consider yourself ethical, that you're doing the best for the athlete, because it's not, you're actually considering what you're doing as opposed to just like going through the motions or
just doing it for the sake of it.
Yeah, and making sure that you can have like a dialogue with the athlete. And sometimes like that dialogue is literally a dialogue. It's like you and the athlete chatting back and forth. But sometimes like just them having the opportunity to talk is like really powerful enough that, you consider what they say. Maybe their words you take on board a lot. Maybe you don't take it on that much, but at least you give them the opportunity to speak.
I think
and be listened to.
That's huge. Like just being able to, I guess, for the athlete more so, to feel confident to be able to like voice their opinion about things, and just having the ability to talk to their coach about things. I think for a coach especially, I think that helps just understand a whole lot more than what's going on in terms of just training and I mean it's going to help build the program as well if there's they know what's going on in their life outside of being at the track.
Because even if it's like good for their emotional, it's always good for like, to have that relationship, for them to have that opportunity to talk, but it informs better practice, in terms of like programming, or maybe on the day they're not able to, their state of readiness may or may not be there. Maybe it's super good. I don't know, like it's, so I think that, but I think that in the end, if you're kind of just extremely thorough with your coaching practice, and if you are able to recognize maybe, I think it was fueled by like, I didn't really also want to continue to be this guy, just like observing these experiences and being like, this sucks. Like, imagine like being me. I was like, am I going to grow old and be like a 6-year-old guy on a couch just being like, coaching in Australia sucks, coaching this sucks, this sucks. I'm like, you could just like, take the first step to maybe changing it a little bit, and it's going to take a long time, but at least give it a little shot.
I mean, it's easier to say things from the sideline, but
until
you're actually in the game and doing it for yourself, at least you're trying to improve the state of it, or trying to put your best foot forward.
And then you realize once you've got a bit of skin in the game that the changes and like, there's reasons why some things happen, and why some things suck, why some things don't suck. So it makes,
I saw like Athletics Australia was getting like a scholarship for like new coaches or like retiring athletes going into coaching. I don't know how much about that But I guess what steps do you think could be taken to try and get more athletes who have an interest in coaching and kind of have the knowledge to kind of pursue a career into coaching, rather than once they're finished being an athlete, they walk off and don't really have anything to do with the sport again?
I'm not sure. I personally, and this is probably fueled by a lot of self-interest. I think that AA should, try and look to the individuals who just want to do it as their option A, as opposed to like a post-career option.
Yeah.
Like how can we support young coaches, especially young female coaches, because there's literally there's very few young female coaches who weren't athletes, like elite athletes beforehand. And like how can pretty much the education system, or from an experience standpoint, how can that be bolstered? I think to try and get athlete coach transition. I don't know. Like there has to be. I guess I well and truly, I don't know. I think that. Yeah.
Because it's hard.
I don't know. What do you think? Yeah.
It's something I've thought about because, I mean, before COVID. So going back to like the first thing I asked you, like during COVID was really when I thought like, you know what, like this is something I want to do. Like I had heaps of hesitations because the whole time I thought, there's athletics in New Zealand is so small, and the opportunities there, like I don't know if I could make coaching into a career or like be able to live off coaching. So for me, that was always the turn off from being like, hey, once I'm done, I want to get into coaching, like seriously. But yeah, I saw that and thought, I'm not sure if athletics in New Zealand has anything like that, but I thought if I saw something like that, that would be the thing which potentially would keep me in it.
Would grab you, yeah.
But yeah, it's in the end, I came to the realization, like, honestly, even if I don't get a living from coaching, it's something that I love to do. I guess it's just trying to figure out a way to get athletes, or whether they are past athletes or not, someone who is just passionate about it, and just if there's a program to help create opportunities for it, to keep them in it, where there may be an incentive of something to remain involved.
I think it would be good as well, like maybe if they if the athletes which they would like to target post career, if there was opportunities for athletes to be involved in that during their career. And so therefore it's actually not like a black and white experience of like, now I'm athlete, now I'm coach. It would be like athlete who trains either, like X amount of hours per week. Maybe they're full-time, maybe they're not. But if they're given the opportunity to like give back to the community at different levels, maybe if New South Wales Athletics, for example, has like some sort of talented athlete program, if they could just be there on the day once every 2 months or something like that, to help facilitate running that experience, chatting to the coaches there, chatting to young athletes there, I think that would be like a really good way to even just begin and see if the athletes enjoy that dynamic. I think just sort of, and it would also serve the coaches of those young talented athletes really well, and it would serve the athletes really well as well to have the opportunity to come into this exotic environment of like a talented athlete sort of thing, and like talk to someone who's performed at a national level in the seniors really well. I think that would be cool. But
it's hard. Like I'm keen to know what other people think about how they can try and develop something to keep young coaches coming through, because I know there's a few back home slowly starting to come through, but I think there could definitely be a lot more. And I think it would just help the sport in general.
So when you were talking about the like the money thing, for example, like was that a driving worry about becoming a coach?
I think it was at first, but then at the end, like I started to just think like, if I'm as good as I think I could possibly be at it, like I'll be able to make whatever to help support myself. But then I've always kind of realized like I'm going to have something on the side.
Yeah.
But I think it was pretty cool in the second episode. I spoke to Alicia Loverit. She's a New Zealand photographer, went to Olympics and stuff. And what she said was like, coming into sports photography in New Zealand, those jobs weren't there, but she just kept plugging away, and she made the opportunities for herself, which is, it's kind of why I'm more seeing now is like, I feel like if I do what I'm doing in coaching, which I love, I'm probably going to be able to create opportunities for myself within sport, whether it is track and field or whether it's across other sports as well. But yeah, I mean, during COVID was really when it was like, honestly, I just need to like forget about the money side of things. I think you need money, but I'd rather be doing that, which is something I'm passionate about, than stuck doing something that makes money that I'm not enjoying.
Yeah.
So
I think like definitely it should almost be like a side hustle which you treat as like your main
you may hustle,
and like and then and I think just like to create your own opportunities, you just have to create stuff. And like, even if I've got this dinky crappy little like Instagram page, like it's been like almost 4 years of just putting crap into the world, and like I've had some fantastic opportunities, and that's probably the only way in which I've been able to coach as awesome of athletes that I have, is because I've just like consistently put myself into the universe, and then like that just created those opportunities. And then now like all of a sudden I can start to see an avenue in which it could be monetarily viable to do coaching, but it won't happen soon. But you know, like there's a million ways to do this thing and make it happen. But yeah.
And you mentioned it, and so I want to get some advice from you about coaching, because I know there are probably a lot of coaches out there looking for insight, or even self-coached athletes. Like you said, you were one back in the day, and I mean, you look through things like Instagram for ideas from coaches, and you see guys like Seidman and Real Game Athletics posting this stuff.
Legends.
Yeah, I mean, if you're speaking to coaches out there who are wanting fundamentals, and we can talk about it in terms of sprinting, or if there are self-coached athletes, what would you say like the fundamentals are that before anything else they need to focus on? And I mean, it can relate to the seminar you put on about simplifying sprinting, or it could relate to sprinting, or it could be something that's more universal and could relate to like all sports.
It's a really good question. I think I think I get more wisdom out of like athletics coaches, and sort of more those generalist coaches, because I think they've got really strong principles which can be applied flexibly across multiple environments. And so I like listening to like the Kewen and Flats of the world and stuff like that. To just
he's funny. Man.
He's a funny dude also. And and so I think that if you can have like strong principles which can help guide your decision making, I think that I think you need to like understand and this is also like where my teaching background comes in, because like the very first principle of like the NESA, how to teach in high school is like know your students and how they learn. So I think that a very good place to start is trying to understand the athletes and how they function. I think is a good place to start. And then I think also you can try and understand the demands of your sport or your event, and you can reverse engineer those demands quite nicely. So if you are able to understand where your athlete fits in the demands of those events, then you can start to design good interventions to ensure that they meet the needs of the demands of the event.
Yeah.
I think that's probably not a bad way to go about it. And then once you can kind of understand where those where the athlete fits in the preparation and for the demands of the event, then you just have to have good good intervention selection, good exercise selection to ensure that those demands are met, and then you need to measure the progress of those interventions and see if they're successful or not. Yeah.
And like, so to kind of summarize, I guess, making sure, once you know where your athlete is in terms of like what they're trying to achieve in the sport, picking out things which are specific to the sport, whether it's exercises or training. Like if you're a sprinter, like we said, you're not going to go out and tell them to run 10 400s like at the start, or make sure what you're doing is like relevant to their specific event.
Yeah, good exercise selection sounds like easy, but it's actually not. Like, because try telling someone who believes that running 10 400s will make them faster, try telling that it might not make them faster because, but if they believe it does, then they're going to choose that exercise, so, I guess for me, I find it easier to just talk about sprinting because that's really where I'm at. And the cool thing about athletics, I guess, is how like measurable everything is. So if you try to make a change, you can observe it. So I think, in that like simplifying sprinting seminar thing, which I did, I tried to just outline how if you have some sort of key attractors, which I think would be like a Bosch type of phrase or something like that, or if you just have KPIs which you want to hit within a certain bandwidth, and you can just focus on that, and may only want to like focus on one thing at a time, because then you can measure whether or not that thing actually matters for that athlete. So like in that seminar, we were really focusing on like the swing leg retracting faster, and we thought that would have a flow-on effect in terms of some other parts of the sprinting cycle, and it was really starting to show a huge difference. And we're like, okay, well, that was a good example of like choosing good exercises and identifying a problem, but there's like a billion examples where haven't been able to match the exercise to the problem, or the problem to begin with. So I
think I'll get the link for that seminar you did, and I'll probably chuck it in the notes if there is anyone that wants to have a look at it. It was about an hour long, right?
Yeah, I think it was about like 45 minutes and then a bunch of questions.
At the end. But if there's anyone out there that's interested in learning a little bit more about what to look at in terms of sprinting, I think it could be pretty good for them to spend 45 minutes of their time looking at it. We'll kind of start wrapping this up, but one last thing. I saw, one of the posts you put on, it had like a rough outline of what your kind of training program would look like. Am I right saying it was like a 3-day program?
At the moment I do like
athletes.
That was just for myself. Like what I do to myself is extremely different to what the athletes do. Like what the athletes I coach do is far more like, just conventional. Like you sprint and then you lift and then you go home. Sometimes it's faster, sometimes it's lighter, whatever it is. But Right. But what I do for myself is like
completely different.
Yeah. I think you're curious about the self-coached athlete thing, and like, I think that what you do as a self-coached athlete should be like quite different, because you don't have that social environment and you can't sustain like the 2 hour long,
Sessions
2.5 hour long
twice.
sessions, like 5 times a week.
Yeah, no,
I try to get in and out in 50 minutes or
Yeah.
45 minutes. I'm done. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's like I was looking at it and thought, like, are you just giving like all your sprinters just 3 days of training? But I mean, it's I'm guessing that's not the case.
Oh, sorry. Did you mean like in that seminar, like they all had like 3 days?
Yeah,
Oh yeah, no, pretty much. They got like 3 days, and then they might have something to do on an off day.
Right.
The 400 people have like 4
yeah,
legitimately designed sessions. No, there's no, I don't know if I don't know if any of them are at a stage where they need like 6
yeah,
days of like bang bang bang, like that. It's not, they're not there. I don't think I'm there either as a coach.
yeah. Which is, I think it's good to like see that you can coach athletes on like whether it's a 3 or 4 day program without flogging them every day. I think.
Yeah, I think if you lift and run on the same day as well, like they still get 3 track sessions and 2.5 gym sessions a week.
Yeah.
So it's still like 5.5 sessions, 6 sessions,
Yeah.
which
if it was including like split days.
Yeah, if you'll split them up. So that's just my perspective. Yeah.
No, that's cool. I mean, I think we'll wrap it up here. I
Beautiful.
appreciate you like taking time out of your day to sit down and share a bit of wisdom.
Anytime. Yeah.
A massive thank you once again, Jack, for taking some time out of your teaching day to share a little bit about your transition into coaching and being really open about some of the struggles you've faced while you've tried to pursue that passion, as well as just sharing some of the knowledge that you have. I think you're a really smart bloke, and it's just cool to hear your thoughts on the world of coaching and sprinting in general. So I appreciate it. Remember to head on over to Instagram and give Jack a follow at Metamorphosis Track Project. You get to see what his athletes get up to in training, what he gets up to in training as a self-coached athlete, as well as just the knowledge and some of the funny content that he puts out. And while you're there, head on over to the Athletes platform. Please give us a like, share our content out there, and drop a comment on some of your thoughts about what we discussed today. I think it'll be really great to start having conversations about these topics and maybe start moving sport and athletics within New Zealand into a new direction, which I think will be positive for everyone involved. Once again, thank you so much for listening to episode 5. I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you next week.